So, good evening to all of you this pleasant evening. A little bit later than scheduled on Fan Comments, one of my favourite segments that we do on Cannon Fodder. And lo and behold, we've got the irreplaceable James Rowe back on Cannon Fodder. Good evening, James Rowe. How are you?
Evening, Alex. How are you? Thanks for your flexibility with the time tonight. Very much appreciated.
No, it's okay. You're welcome. You're very welcome. So,
Thank you.
as you know, we like to go through your comments that you religiously, all the viewers, the subscribers, and followers, put on Cannon Fodder TV. But because it's a European special, because I've got
Yeah.
James Rowe here, I'm going to go through just a few of the fan comments. And if you're watching, come through the chat. If you've got any questions for James, we'll try and answer the questions as honestly as possible, in any way possible that we can.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you would have noticed that I didn't do a post-match video on the match against Leicester. So I'm hoping that there are no comments that I can see here that anyone's made, apart from actually one about the match yesterday against Leicester City. But let me just get through just a couple of the comments here. And there were a few from a new subscriber, and her name is Elaine Sharp. I hope Elaine's watching this evening because we've been sending some tweets on Twitter over the last 7 days.
Yeah.
She's a very knowledgeable woman.
She is, and she's also very sharp with her observations.
Yeah.
I've often spoken to Elaine the last I think it's been a few months now on Twitter, where she's been very sharp with her observations, and it's always, even when you're going to matches and you're speaking to other Gooners, or even in a social setting on Twitter, it's always interesting to hear the opinions of fellow Gooners.
Yeah, and like we always say, we're going to have our differences, but we must respect the opinions of other fans and in the fan base as well.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, James, before we get into it, can you remind everyone that's watching where they can find you on the platforms?
They can find me on Twitter at James Rowe NL. You can read my interviews with professional players and managers on worldfootballindex.com. You can also hear me every now and again on TalkSport and TalkSport 2. And tomorrow afternoon, I will be on Love Sport Radio, who are based in London, to speak about Ajax and ahead of their match against Tottenham in London tomorrow night.
So there you go. And also, just as a reminder, if you're going to be watching us at a later date, I will leave James's link. You can follow him on his Twitter account. Right. So, like I said, we alluded to Elaine Sharp, and this is quite a long one, but I'll just get out the little bits. And she's just talking, and she's responding to Raz's post-match video he did for the Crystal Palace match. So going back, quite a few days, and she was saying that lots of great points made. I disagree to the extent about the team selection. Torreira has been carrying a knock for a while. Xhaka is still suffering from groin issues. We have lost Ramsey to injury, and if we play both our strikers and one gets injured, then we really will be in big trouble. James, we've spoken before about having the plan B, and I think Danny Welbeck has been a big loss to the Arsenal, because we've seen him do some wonders in the Europa League and come on as a sub, as a plan B. Has he been such a great loss for the Arsenal?
He offers something different. He's got a lot of pace, and he always works very hard. And you can remember his hat-trick against Galatasaray in the Champions League a few years ago. He was signed for, I think, £16 million, which I think was a fair amount, and I know there's rumblings as to whether his contract would be extended or not. But he offers a different outlet and pace, and his work rate, can be contagious in some cases. But I think he has been missed. But I think the player who's been missed the most is Rob Holding. I think he's been, I look at that Arsenal team before he got injured and after it, and especially at the back, it's not the same team, is it?
No.
And when I was on the channel of Ray from Arsenal Fan Circle yesterday, I said, if Holding would have been fit the entire season, I think he would be the one that would be in contention for Player of the Year. And it would be great to welcome him back next season, hopefully. And it's been a real big miss, I think, Rob Holding in particular.
Yeah. Okay, just a couple more because we want to get into the nitty-grits of the Europa League Cup fixtures semi-final. There's one here from Richard from Arsenal TV. Good evening, Richard, if you're watching, and he just says, "Good video, brother. Keep it up. Come on, you Gunners." There's one from Mube Guna who says, "We are so weak, it's ridiculous." Just one more from AFC Predict, and they say a very poor performance indeed. And James, I guess all these comments could actually link them to any of the defeats that Arsenal have had there over this season.
Especially the last week. And do you know what the thing that really got me thinking yesterday? And the match hadn't even kicked off. When I watched it live on TV, and when they went through the teams, I saw a Leicester back line of Schmeichel, Pereira, Evans, Maguire, and Chilwell. And I thought, that's got fantastic natural balance. That's a tremendous defence. Not just in terms of personnel, but balance. They've got a left back that's a left footer. They've got a right back that's a right footer that can also like to go forward and is physically very strong. And I was watching it with a friend of mine, and I said, their defence, they look better than what we do. And the ball hasn't even been kicked yet. And you see the small details at that level, and I thought Unai Emery getting a bit flustered when he had to be spoken to by Michael Oliver. I think that shows a little bit of pressure. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, Unai Emery is signed for 2 seasons, Alex. I will give him the full benefit of those 2 seasons, and he has my full support. But I wonder, with that type of behaviour, I wonder if there are certain clauses put into his contract which have to be met this season for him to be so agitated. Obviously, I think with personnel, they're not his players. He's just taken over from a squad, and he must be given the full backing in the summer to buy who he wants to buy, and more importantly, sell who he wants to sell. I mean, yes, we live in a world with social media where people, when Ozil's not playing, they like to kind of criticise and have like a meltdown. If Unai Emery wants to sell Mesut Ozil, he's the boss. Let him do it. You can't. No player is bigger than the club, as the cliche goes. But we've got to attract good players. We've got to scout better. We've got to identify better. I mean, I've rated Mark Albrighton for years, ever since his days at Aston Villa. He's a tremendous player. How he's never been capped for England is a crime, in my opinion. But when I've stated that he could be a tremendous asset for Arsenal, people say, "Oh, what are you talking about? He's not Arsenal class. He's a Premier League winner." And very rarely do I see Mark Albrighton give the ball away, or very rarely do I see him play a stray pass. And he's also only recently returned from injury. You also have to remember that. And I just think that Arsenal have got to identify more. If Unai Emery buys players in the summer that people necessarily have not heard of, doesn't mean to say he's doing a bad job. It's about getting characters in. It's about moulding a team effort. And one thing that reminds me of is, as I say, being in a position to interview professional players and managers on a regular basis. I interviewed the current manager of Venlo, Molly Stein, who was linked with the Ipswich job last summer. And he was telling me that when he arrived at the club, there was characters in that dressing room who, in his words, were not conducive to winning. So he had to get them out. Those were his words. He had to get them out. So he managed to do that. The following season, they finished second and fell at the playoff hurdle. The season after that, they won the league, and they got promoted, and they've been in the Eredivisie ever since. So you have a professional manager explaining to me about looking at his squad, looking at the characters in his squad, and Unai Emery has got to be utterly ruthless, absolutely utterly ruthless. I can understand that if the bigger names go, some people will say he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's the boss. Let him do what he's got to do, because if he's not allowed to do what he wants to do, Alex, long term he won't be manager of Arsenal Football Club, which would be a huge shame.
James, do you remember a couple of seasons ago where we were reportedly looking to sign Jamie Vardy?
Yeah, I remember.
Do you know, it might sound controversial, but I would take Jamie Vardy because
Yeah.
he's so hungry.
Yeah. Well, I remember when that deal broke, Alex, and he was going for talks with Arsenal. And I think it was Ian Wright that once said, you know, Arsenal wanted to sign him from Crystal Palace. He's there like a shot. I mean, obviously he loves Crystal Palace. He's grateful for what Crystal Palace did for him. But he didn't have to think twice about signing for Arsenal. Jamie Vardy did. And I'm convinced that I can understand. I heard Jamie Vardy's interview afterwards where he said, you know, there was a real band of brothers at Leicester and I didn't want to leave it behind, and he's entitled to his own opinion. But I'm convinced with that deal, Alex, Arsenal did not sell the club to him. And if they'd made more of an effort, it could have been a little bit different.
Yeah.
And we're not in a situation anymore where Arsenal have come in for me. Where do I sign? We have to work just that little bit harder now to sign the player we want. Facts are facts. We have reached one Champions League final. We haven't won a league title for 15 years. And these are all facts in the cold light of day. So going forward, we've got to try that little bit harder to sign that player. And there's often a common denominator with when signing a player, where if a club really, really shows that they want them and goes the extra mile, 9 times out of 10 it can be decisive. So I hope in the summer that we get our business done early and there's a real good mix, and that there's 25 names that line up in August that really want to fight for the club and have a team ethic. I've been happy with Unai Emery this season, Alex, but one factor that I completely disagree with is his policy of 5 captains. As I say, I interviewed professional players and managers, and I'll give you an example. It can be that a player, a midfielder, a striker, a defender has a personal problem or has something they want to get off their chest or something they want to discuss with their captain. If they've got one captain that they know that they can go to discuss things behind closed doors, that person will help them, I think that's good for team spirit. If you've got 5 captains that are rotated, I mean, you only had to see the body language of Mesut Ozil in the tunnel against Everton. Didn't really look as if he wanted it. Xhaka looked nervous in the tunnel yesterday. I don't polarize Xhaka to the extent that some Arsenal fans do, but I believe Xhaka is the type of player who we can see improve more. But I think when he takes on just that little bit too much responsibility in this case, I think it kind of gets ahead of him a little bit, and it's a bit too much for him. But we need, as of next season, we need a captain and a vice captain, and that be that. But obviously, Unai Emery is the manager. You have to respect what he's doing. But another thing about the season as well, it's just gone by so quick. It seems like it seems like only yesterday. It seems like only yesterday we're playing Bournemouth at home, and he's got the likes of Lacazette and Aubameyang playing in a friendly against Bournemouth, and everyone's saying this is amazing. And then before you know it, it's just gone like a shot. We are still in a chance with a chance of winning our first European trophy for 25 years. And that would cap a tremendous season, but we've really got to fight in these last 3 games starting this Thursday.
Yeah. All right, so just a couple more. Actually, just one more leading on to before we go into the next segment, which is European Cup talk. There's one here from another ardent supporter of Cannon Foyer TV, Arnav Ghosh, and he says, no comment, Alex. I'm sick and tired of such performers. It brings back memories of the Wenger years. Not that it was bad, but the last few years had been bitter for us. Being bitter is an understatement. I'm angry with the insipid display. At times, I agree with Deeney. We lack cojones. You know what? I'm going to put that to rest. No more talk of the Leicester City match. Let's go to brighter things, James, and let's talk about Valencia.
I'm in Valencia, a huge club who we will know well from 1980. and also 2001 when we took a lead to the Mestalla. But this is a different Valencia now. This is a Valencia we are facing who have lost 11 games out of 54 this season in all competitions. This is a Valencia team that have reached the Copa del Rey final. This is a Valencia team that conceded 3 goals for the first time this season in one single match away to Atletico Madrid last Wednesday, where they were 1-0 down, equalised, 2-1 down, equalised, and lost in the final stages. They have Marcelino as their manager, who managed to get Villarreal to the semi-final of the Europa League when they were beaten by Liverpool. And this is a Valencia side who are really excited about coming to London to play Arsenal. There's 820 Valencia fans coming to London for the match, and they'll be in fine voice. And a Valencia side with dangerous players. Their Brazilian goalkeeper Neto is viewed, along with Oblak, to be one of the best goalkeepers in the league. They have the likes of Dani Parejo and Kevin Gamero, who are players that don't need to be asked to take their chances, particularly Gamero, and also Gabriel Paulista, who we know well. And as far as I'm aware, I think Francis Coquelin is suspended for the first leg, if my memory serves me rightly. But we've got to learn the lessons of the match against Atletico around about this time last year, where we didn't win the home leg, went to Spain and became very shy and very timid. And we've got to win the home game by hook or by crook.
I did just a little bit of research about Valencia, and you rightly say that they only had suffered 11 defeats in 54 games.
54
I didn't
games.
realise the list of previous managers. Of course, we know that Unai Emery was the manager there from 2008 until 2012. But previous to that was Ronald Koeman.
Yeah,
Rafael Benitez. So these managers, who have experience not only in European football, but also they've featured in the Premier League as well. How much advantage do you think really Emery will have over Valencia?
A slight advantage, if I'm honest. A slight advantage because he used to manage them, but he's also it's been 6-7 years since he's left. A lot has changed. The club has become a lot more refined. The club after Ronald Koeman and their awful stint with Gary Neville, because a new owner had taken over and must have thought, here is a good manager. But you make a great point about the managers. But I'd also like to add Hector Cooper and Claudio Ranieri to that list, because Hector Cooper got them to 2 consecutive Champions League finals, having the likes of Mendieta and Caru and Angulo and Canizares. And this is they're a huge club. They've won, I think, 6 La Liga titles, and they also Copa del Rey as well. They're in the Copa del Rey final against Barcelona on the 25th of May this year. They are. They were always, up until Simeone arrived at Atletico, they were always perched behind Real Madrid and Barcelona. And obviously, with the might of Simeone and Atletico, they've fallen away a little bit, but they're still in the top 5 clubs of Spanish teams. The Mestalla is a wonderful stadium. I myself, I've never been there, but obviously you've seen it a lot on TV, and it looks like a daunting place to go. And obviously with their the bats and the passion that they have. And I was watching a lot of Marcelino's press conferences in the run up to this game, and he was saying about that Arsenal have more of an obligation to win. Valencia just can win, and that they're very excited to go to London to play, and they're very excited to be fighting on all fronts. They had a difficult match yesterday where they lost in injury time to Eibar, and it kind of dented their Champions League aspirations. But another factor for the key leg as well, of all the home league games they've played this season, Alex, they've only won 6. They've only won 6, lost 2, and drawn the rest. So it's very much inconsistency with many draws. But they also set a club record in the beginning of April to be unbeaten in 17 games. So, they've definitely got something about them. We mustn't underestimate them. And we've got a tremendous opportunity to win our first European trophy in 25 years. And we've got to take it with both hands.
Again, just going on about my little bit of investigation work on Valencia. And actually, I saw a tweet yesterday where someone actually said that all the teams who feature in the semi-finals of the Europa League Cup, they didn't win. So, of course, Valencia, you say, lost against Eibar. Frankfurt drew with Hertha Berlin.
Hertha Berlin,
and of
yes.
course, we know that Arsenal lost as well. So,
but yeah, it's anybody's cup in that last four. I've said I think Frankfurt will dispose of Chelsea over 2 legs. We've got a tremendous opportunity now. It would be a shame to let it pass us by. But another thing which is playing on my mind a little bit, Alex, is our record against Spanish teams. It's not very good. Real Zaragoza, Mallorca, Deportivo La Coruña, Valencia, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Sevilla. It's basically a who's who of Spain that we are yet to beat. And, that doesn't make great reading, of course, but the crowd is going to play a big part on Thursday. We mustn't underestimate them. And if this chance was to go by, you wonder when it's going to come round again. We reached the semi-final last season as well, but should Arsenal be in the Europa League next season, you only have to look at the qualifying matches of this tournament before the group stage even began to see the amount of big clubs that didn't even make it to the group stage. FC Basel, Feyenoord, Apoel Nicosia. Very big clubs didn't even make it to the group stage. There were many, many surprises. Rennes, who recently won the French Cup at the expense of Paris Saint-Germain last Saturday. They were 2-0 down as well. Rennes are a very good side. I thought Arsenal did very well to capitalise on Rennes because they hit the post in the closing stages of the home leg a few back on the 14th of March, I believe it was. And, we were quite lucky. But you can't plan your way into a European final. It would be our first European final for 13 years, which would be a great shot in the arm. It can really help us to get back on the map in Europe. I can understand people's clamour for the Champions League, Alex, but what are we going to achieve in the Champions League? What are we going to achieve? I would much rather go into the Champions League as winners of the Europa League and have that little bit more pedigree, that little bit more belief. Because when Arsenal do eventually go back into the Champions League, we're going to be put into a very, very difficult group and of very, very difficult opponents. And then you've got to try to get out of that. The dynamic will be completely different. And we was in the Champions League for 20 years and everybody took it for granted. Everybody took it for granted. It was as if going out for a walk is as if something you do, where there was never really any excitement about who we're playing or what we're doing. I mean, in the 20 years we only reached one final and a semi-final in 2009, and it just became so expected that now we're not in it. I mean, for me, I've enjoyed the Europa League personally. It's just the opportunity to see teams you don't always see. In my case, like Rennes and Östersunds and Napoli and Sporting Lisbon and Bati Borisov and Volsko Poltava. It's an opportunity to see different teams because the biggest sea change in football in the last 20 years is not just the money and the commercialism, but the gap between the seasoned European teams and the lesser European teams is decreasing year on year. And that also needs to be remembered.
Yeah. But you know what? I made a couple of comments on Twitter about I would prefer, for now, Arsenal challenge in the Europa League. For that reason, I think, like I said before, we've been in the Champions League for X amount of years and we haven't really challenged.
No.
And what really stuck for me was to get beaten by Bayern Munich, actually pummeled. And I wouldn't want Arsenal to go through that again until they're ready. Arsenal are not ready to be in the Champions League. They're not ready.
No. And it's about learning how to deal with European opponents. It's about. I mean, I get the impression that in some cases Arsenal fans want to run before they can walk of our Champions League, and just take a look at the teams that are in the top four of respective divisions. Take a look at the surprises. There are surprises aplenty. There's, for example, Lille in France are likely to be in the Champions League next year, which nobody really expected. Obviously, the current Champions League, we have a semi-final between Ajax and Tottenham, which nobody expected. This is an Ajax team that came all the way through the qualifiers. I remember I was at the game in the back end of last summer, the first European match at home to Sturm Graz, and the first 10, 15 minutes looked a little bit shaky. And it just goes to show, coming through all those qualifying rounds, they now have a tremendous opportunity to reach the final for the first time since 1995. And just to bring it home, the local team of the city where I live, should they reach the Champions League final, would have made more progression in Europe than what my own club has made, having had 1/6 of the budget, not even that. Ajax reached the Europa League final in 2017, and I think with home advantage that they will reach the Champions League final too. And this is a group of young, very, very eager players led by a 19-year-old captain in every sense of the word. And Matthijs de Ligt is just a once-in-a-generation player. And, for everybody to listen to him and for everybody to fight together, I look at the captains we've had since possibly Vieira left, and they don't really measure up to what he can actually do at the age of 19 years old. And the next club to sign him will be very lucky indeed.
Yeah. All right. So again, everyone who's passed by and seen James Rowe and myself talk about fan comments as well as the Europa League semi-finals, make sure you subscribe to James's Twitter handle, and also subscribe to Cannon Fodder. Don't forget Cannon Fodder. James, there are a couple of comments in the chat. One I recognise, Ray. Good evening, Ray. Sorry, we had to get through the bits and pieces before I can get into the chat. And he's got a couple of questions. The first question is, how much do you think we'll miss Ramsey for the Europa home league, the home leg? Beg your pardon.
I think we will miss him because he was vital in the first leg at home to Napoli, scoring the first goal, which kind of set the tone. And you wonder who's going to step up against a very rigorous Valencia, who challenge second balls and they fight for every ball. They don't let things linger. And so someone's going to have to step up. You wonder if Ozil is going to play. You wonder if Denis Suarez will make a potential appearance. You just don't know. And give them something different to think about, because this is a Valencia side who are not just in the semi-final to make up the numbers. And I also think Arsenal were also quite lucky to be there, really, because I think, if you're brutally honest, we should have been knocked out by Rennes. If I'm brutally honest, we should have been knocked out by Rennes, and we wasn't. And we had a tremendous result, specifically away to Napoli and Naples. So we rode our luck a little bit, but it would be a shame to reach this stage now and to kind of bow out, after a quarter of a century, and then you've got the likes of the local rival not far up the road from Arsenal, potentially playing a Champions League final, and also having just moved into a new stadium. So they would have accomplished in the space of 2 months, what Arsenal could not have accomplished in the last 13 years. I know football is a funny game, but those kind of things, and when you hear Wenger saying, participation, and every player rings me because they want to play Champions League. Yes, I having a bit of an inside track on football. Your education improves all the time, especially when speaking to players and managers on a regular basis. But your Champions League is not the be all and end all. As you say, we're not ready for it yet. So let's just kind of ride it out. Let's win a European trophy, and let's go into that competition having proved that we can win in Europe, because I think that will stand us in good stead.
Again, I can't really go by so much I've seen on YouTube really about how Valencia play, but from my impression is that they're really compact, they're well drilled, they know how to communicate.
They do.
They have a larger group of players that they rely on to score goals. I've got like Daniel Parejo, Giancarlo, Rodrigo, Kevin,
Yeah,
San. They have a larger group of players that they rely on to score goals, whereas we're relying on just maybe 2 or 3 players.
yeah. Well, we've got to stand up and be counted on Thursday, and remember that this is an opportunity that doesn't come by very often. And I remember being at the home leg at home to Atletico, where we're 1-0 up and we're pushing for the second, and we didn't score, and then they break away, and Griezmann scores through an error from Koscielny. But we've got to learn from our mistakes. If we win 2-1, if they score, it's not the end of the world. But we have to take a lead to the Mestalla, because that game itself is going to be a real test, you know. But we should take heart from the fact that we won in Naples, won in Lisbon. So remember those things. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game. Really, really looking forward to it. I'm a bit sad to be missing only my second European home match this season. But obviously commitments here in the Netherlands. But yeah, I can't be too disheartened to have only missed home matches in Europe against Carabag and Valencia this season, and having been to the rest, I've been quite lucky.
Yeah. And just before we cap it off, there's just one more question from Ray, and he's asking, what is the right balance for Thursday night? I mean, you know, what I guess he's probably asking about the lineup. What would your lineup be for Thursday?
Well, I just think that we've got to not err on the side of caution. We've got to win it. We've got to win it. So it's got to be that little bit brave. Go attacking. Don't try to sit off, because we've got to. You know, when you go with Valencia at pace, they can open up a little bit. So we've got to be quick. We've got to be incisive. But above all, we've got to win. If it's a winner in the 90th minute, if it's a winner in the 5th minute, you know, Marcelino is tactically very flexible, as is Unai Emery. But it would be a tremendous feat for Unai Emery to reach a European final in his debut season at Arsenal. It would be the story of the season, basically. And yeah, you know, to put us on the map in Europe, and for him to win it 4 times as well. I mean, the criticism that I saw of Unai Emery on Twitter, you know, you've got to remember, this is a guy born and raised in San Sebastian who, when he arrived at the club, decided to do his very first press conference as Arsenal manager in English. Now, you imagine getting a job as manager of AC Milan and trying to do your very first press conference as manager of AC Milan in Italian. That just goes to show you the measure of the man and how much courage and how much fight that he's got. And he's signed for 2 years. There's lots of work to be done in the summer, but we're also, you know, we've also got to be proud of him. You know, he's we had a 22-game unbeaten run. You know, it didn't look as if we was going to lose for some time, and then yes, he's made some very difficult and very strange decisions tactically, but you know, taking over for somebody who's been there for 22 years must be very difficult, because I'm convinced, Alex, that he's asked players to do certain things, and because those players have been in such a comfort zone for many, many years, they can't do what he's asked them to do. And I can imagine, as a professional manager speaking to a professional player, that must be very difficult to accept, because you're dealing with players who've been in a comfort zone for such a long time. So he's got to be given time. But I just hope that he gets the room to do what he wants to do. I'm aware that I think Arsenal have got to sell. I think the last time I heard, it was 45 million plus sales. Okay, then you've got to be ruthless, and then maybe you've got to sell one of the big hitters. It might not make any of the fanboys happy, but the fanboys are not really important, are they? What is important is that the long-term health of the club. You know, to think Arsenal have had 18 years without a league title between 53 and 71, 71 and 89. So we know what it's like. But the coming season is 15 years since Arsenal last won a league title. And people often much malign Liverpool. Liverpool are now currently at 30. Now, you imagine Arsenal being at 30 one day. It doesn't really bear thinking about, does it? But you've got to put the You got to put the things in practice. Got to let youth also develop. Like for example, so when that ball came off the bar yesterday, as Socrates just kind of stood there. Daniel Ballard has had a tremendous season in the under-23s. Is on the verge of being capped by his country. Hasn't even made an Arsenal appearance yet. That tells you how good he is. So in the summer, you put him in. Put him in the squad. What have you got to lose? There is no point going out and buying average players on huge salaries when you've got a youth policy. Put them in, give them a squad number. You don't have to play them all the time. You don't have to play them every single week, but just let them know that they're going to be used. And if Emery can find a balance, Alex, of 3 or 4 youth players going into that first team squad, players that he wants to bring in, and I know we live in a world where people rate players and don't rate players, but just let him do his job, because if he doesn't do it properly in the summer, he knows himself what's coming. And I would find that a huge shame if he was to only be with us for 2 seasons. But he knows how hard he's got to work in that second season. But fingers crossed we can give a great end to his debut season as Arsenal manager by winning the Europa League.
I'm going to push you for a prediction for Thursday night, but look, I've been supporting Arsenal since 1978. Unbelievably enough, the time has gone very, very quick. So that's like best part of 41 years, and it has gone very, very quick. And I will always support Arsenal through the good times
and the
bad times. That's what a true fan is supposed to do.
Yeah.
But in regards to Thursday, I just can't see where Arsenal's going to pull out a win. We need to win. We need to probably win by 2 clear goals, or win the match. But
just win.
James, I can't see it on the back of 3 defeats.
Yeah,
where the players have been
very good.
Sorry, James. Yeah.
Especially playing a very good Valencia team. My prediction, if I'm brutally honest, is a 1-1 draw. That's my prediction. I think it's going to be 1-1. And should it be 1-1, I don't want to hear people saying, "Oh, an away goal." Oh no, the away goal has far too much clout in European football now, where people, when they win, but they concede, don't even celebrate victories anymore because, oh no, we conceded a goal. You got to enjoy the victories. It doesn't matter if they score. I mean, we beat Valencia in 2001 and went to the Mestalla and lost. Valencia went on to the final. But as we said in a couple of podcasts ago, I think it was the one on the just before the Rennes match, we were speaking about it, Alex. Players now, you've got to realise the opportunity which is before you. When your career is finished and you look back, did you do enough? Did you do enough? I remember sitting with my head in my hands watching Arsenal play away to Atletico Madrid last May, knowing I have a ticket for the final and knowing that I would be in a privileged position to watch my team play in the European final, how lucky I would be. And to just kind of see them wilt like a flower was very, very difficult to take. So these players have got to realise the opportunity which is before them, because when their career is finished and you haven't won anything, specifically at European level, because the opportunity does not come round every day of the week. And our competitors have all won in Europe recently. Chelsea have won in Europe, Liverpool have won in Europe, Manchester United have won in Europe. All our competitors domestically have won in Europe. Why can't we? It's about time that we show that we can, instead of becoming the nearly men, go and win it. Go and win it and celebrate it and enjoy it and go into the Champions League saying, look, we won this last year. If we was to win the Europa League, we've got the carrot of a potential Super Cup against maybe a Barcelona or an Ajax. That would be fun. The last time Arsenal played a Super Cup, we played AC Milan home and away because it was a 2-legged affair in '95. And it just goes to show how long ago it was. And I think Maldini and Baresi played for Milan. That tells you how long ago it was. Yeah. You had the likes of Maldini and Baresi playing for Milan. And I remember Merson's comeback game at Highbury. And that was obviously he was my favourite player at the time. And but yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. Grab it with both hands. But I think it's Emery which is going to push him over the line. I think it's Emery which is going to say to them, "No, this is it. If I have to drag you over the line, I will." Because you wonder if we don't make it. People think, oh, if we don't get Champions League, we don't get top four. If we don't get Champions League, we don't win the Europa League. It's been a terrible season. It's been an okay season for someone who's had to take over from a dynasty of 22 years, where everybody from top to bottom was far too comfortable.
Here.
You imagine being that person that goes and sits in that seat and having to deal with what you have to deal with. It must blow your mind. So I think Unai Emery has done a tremendous job, and fingers crossed we can have a good end to the season. But the crowd's going to play a huge part on Thursday. As I say, I've been fortunate enough to only miss what will be 2 Europa League matches this season, and specifically with the matches against Rennes and Napoli to a certain extent. I've got the impression from fans that no, we've got this, everything will be fine. Yes. But it doesn't work like that round after round after round after round. So we've got to kind of really pull out the stops. Everybody's got to sing their heart out and be aware. It's a game of 90 minutes. If we're 1-0 up, get behind them, try to see if we can close the game out. Don't do anything stupid. But I'll be watching with bated breath on Thursday.
That leads me on to my prediction. I can see us losing the first leg, James. 2-1. 2-1 again. I just can't see where we're going to pull out this win from. Well, 3 defeats.
I think they're very interesting predictions, and it just goes to show that on Canal Fodder we are fair and we are neutral, because you have some. Every Arsenal podcast and channel has something different, but I think it's always good to be honest as the day is long. But we'll we will keep an eye on our predictions and see how it goes.
All right, and then just last before we close this segment of fan comments, it sounds like we've been going on for ages, but we haven't. It's only like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
There's just one more comment here from Ryan from Mr. Arsenal podcast. And he says, does it come down to certain players that he inherited just don't have the right mentality? Yes, Ryan, it is.
Yes, it is, Ryan. And Emery has got to help himself. And it's not a trick question. Don't pick them. It's not a trick question. If you don't believe in them, don't pick them. Just don't do it. The best managers in the world don't do it. Why have you got to do it? I mean, if you think of, I know the game's changed and everything, but if you needed a player, often you would go to the youth team and you would say, I need a left back. Who would you suggest? Oh, he's really good. I'll have him. And before you know it, like Ashley Cole, one of the best left backs the club has ever had. He fell in for, I think it was Lusney that was injured.
Yeah.
It spawned the career. It spawned the career of one of the greatest left backs Arsenal have ever had, probably the best left back Arsenal have ever had, and also England as well. So it just goes to show. But I don't know if Unai Emery is just trying to. They made a great point on Arsenal fan circle yesterday. I don't know if he's just trying to put the feelers out in the dressing room and not upset too many people. I thought that was a great point. But it's just got to be utterly ruthless now. As that season is finished, before those suits have been packed and those players have left that dressing room, he can say, right, you, and you, and you don't have to bother coming back the 1st of May. Do it there and then. Do it in the Burnley dressing room. Or do it when you get back to headquarters, and then just let him do his job.
Yeah.
Because I think we spoke about it before. I have a friend of mine who's a Valencia fan, and he said that the second season of Emery can be somewhat quite difficult. Now, if people are complaining now, what are they going to do next season? You've got to stick by the club through thick and thin, through the good times and the bad times. As I say, we're very lucky with Copenhagen '94, and I never thought that in 30 years of supporting the club, Alex, that would still be. If you ask me if it's my fondest memory, I think I would say yes.
Wow.
Because the reason why is because to be so encapsulated by it as a kid, when there wasn't much football on TV, coming off the back of a 6-year ban that English clubs had in Europe, didn't even play in Europe. And an Arsenal team with so many characters that fought for the shirt, fought for the fans, and loved the fans as much as the players loved the fans as much as the fans loved the players. That was a very, very special time. And we reached the final the following year, only to lose in the closing stages against Zaragoza. You know, we've got to really take the opportunity now for the next generation. You know, I'll go absolutely doolally if Arsenal win the Europa League. Absolutely, I'll go absolutely doolally. But I was, I will be on Ryan's channel again this Friday, which I'm looking forward to because he's been very patient with the move, I must say. So thanks, Ryan. I just wanted to say before we close, Alex, last time I was speaking to Ryan after the Napoli match, as far as I'm aware, a potential final would kick off at midday UK time. That's 1 o'clock my time because we're an hour ahead. But you imagine that as an occasion. You know, if you haven't got a day off work or you're watching it in your lunch hour, you know, I remember finals being played at night under floodlights. I don't know if that kickoff time in Europe in the UK has been ratified, but when I was looking a little bit ahead, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, fingers crossed for Wednesday. Fingers crossed for Thursday. I hope it's all a positive result that we can get behind. And come on, you Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. Listen, on that note, James, I wanna say a big thank you to you to coming back on Cannon Fodder, especially one of my favorite segments on Cannon Fodder fan comments, because for me it gives, I like the live interaction with the fans in the chat.
Absolutely, it's good. You never know which question you're going to get, and thank you to all the fans that sent a question in, and thank you for everybody watching. It's always fun for me to take part, obviously being a Gooner through, but it's always nice to give a dash of the European opponents, because you know, you get in this day and age with all the information we have at our fingertips. It's not, some fans don't know enough about European counterparts or European opponents, so it's always nice to help enlighten them a little bit.
Yeah, and we thank you so much for that, James. To those of you who came and joined the chat and the questions in the Twitter as well, again, I want to say thank you very much to you guys, because like I always say on Cannon Fodder, without any subscribers or followers, there could never ever be a Cannon Fodder TV. So from my brother Ralph, who actually he's going to be featuring a lot more on Cannon Fodder, but I'll do some more promo work between now and this Friday. But James, again, thank you very much. Thank you so very much.
Anytime.
And from James and myself on Cannon Fodder TV, we are out.